Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name's Jayden Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Friday?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to these games this weekend. Wow, the AFC and NFC championship games. We've come a long way. It's been a long season. Now we're down to just 4 teams. We'll see what's going to happen.
It's going to be a hell of a ride. A lot of big-time matchups. We could be seeing NFL history be in the making this weekend on actually both conferences, because the Chiefs could be on their way to a three-peat, or Jayden Daniels could become the first rookie quarterback to make and potentially win the Super Bowl. But before we get into the games, there's some news to talk about, because there is so much coaching news. There was one that we knew would happen, and it did happen Friday, but the news didn't break. We're going to get into that, but let's start with the first one, which is probably the biggest breaking news of today, which is that probably future Hall of Fame coach Pete Carroll has signed a 3-year, potentially 4-year contract with the Las Vegas Raiders. That 4th year is an option year, but he does sign a 3-year deal with the Las Vegas Raiders after being a senior advisor to the Seattle Seahawks and being the head coach for a very, very long time, having large amounts of success, 2 Super Bowl appearances, and a Super Bowl win. He now will become the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders after the Raiders fired Antonio Pierce after only 1 singular season. So here's the big question for you is, the Raiders, at least we got told that they should be around a 500 pushing playoff team. Instead, they were one of the worst teams in the NFL last year. So here's my question to you. Do you think that Pete Carroll could turn things around in Las Vegas?
I think it's going to be tough because you look at the division, very, very tough. You've got Kansas City in that division. You've got the Broncos in that division. You've got the Chargers in that division. They all made the playoffs this year. The Chiefs going for a three-peat in the Super Bowl. All the coaches there have either won a Super Bowl, multiple Super Bowls, or a NCAA championship game. Pete Carroll's in that league. He's actually won 2 NCAA championship games and 1 Super Bowl.
It's not the NCAA. That's basketball.
Oh, I'm sorry.
FBS.
The SBS, whatever.
FBS.
Yeah. So anyway, the college football championship game. Pete Carroll's won 2 of them. And he's won a Super Bowl as well. I think it's a good choice. I like the choice. He's 73 years old. But you know what? I'm getting up there myself. So to me, the age doesn't matter that much. He says it doesn't matter to him. He feels great. So he never felt better.
You're not an NFL coach, though.
He's got he says he got the strength. He knows what's up, what needs to be done, and he feels like he's got that strength to do it. He coached the Seahawks from 2010 to 23. That's a long stretch. Parted ways with Seattle last January, as you mentioned. He became a advisor. I don't think he really did much. I mean, he was at USC as a teacher. So I don't know if they were calling him very much to get his advice. They should have, because they didn't make the playoffs. He won the Super Bowl and lost the Super Bowl. We remember the loss there. We have the picture of Malcolm Butler intercepting the ball at the goal line there. That's one that kind of defines Pete a little bit, but maybe not that much. He's had 137 wins with the Seahawks, 10 playoff wins. Overall, 170, 120, and 1. That's a pretty good record. And he was 97 and 19 in college with 2 championships. He recently returned to USC last summer to teach. He's one of 3 coaches with a Super Bowl title and a college championship win. Said he didn't have a desire to get back on the sidelines at this time, but that he could still handle the workload that comes with being a head coach. I could coach tomorrow. I'm physically in the best shape I've been in a long time. I'm ready to do all the activities that I'm doing, and I'm feeling very good about it. I could, but I don't really. I'm not desiring it at this point in time. Well, the offer came and he took it. So I guess he was desiring it enough to get back into the game. The Raiders are undergoing big leadership changes here this season after firing Antonio Pierce and their GM, Tom Telesco. We don't know who. I guess John Spytek was hired from the Bucs to be the new GM. Maybe he's a good choice. The Bucs have been pretty good with bringing Baker Mayfield in after they lost Tom Brady, and they made the playoffs 2 years in a row here, the past 2 years. That's something you can't say about the Raiders. Carroll, only the third coach to lead 4 teams. He's now going to lead the Raiders. He led the Seahawks, the Patriots, and the Jets. The only other 2 are Marty Schottenheimer and Bill Parcells. It's a long rivalry with Jim Harbaugh resumes. When he was at the Seahawks, he played the 49ers a lot, and Harbaugh was their coach for a number of years there. But now he's in a division with Kansas City, the Chargers, and the Broncos. That's going to be tough. They all make the playoffs. They all have Super Bowl winning coaches except for the Chargers, who have Harbaugh, who is he's going to get there and win one at some point, I think, because he did it in college. He made the Super Bowl but lost to his brother in the NFL. I think it looks like a safe decision after some very poor decisions by the Raiders over the years. We'll remember the Jamarcus Russell draft pick at number 1 overall. Lane Kiffin pick as head coach at 31 years old. No playoff wins in 22 years. He's seen as getting the Raiders back on track and relevance, and maybe beyond. It's hard to say. I think Tom Brady's fingerprints are all over this hire. I think they said, look, you gambled with young head coaches. You're in a division where you got veteran coaches who have been very successful. We need to have some stability here. And coming off a 4-win season and still not settled on a quarterback, I think it's going to be quite challenging. And Brady was the one that said that the franchise needs to get serious. Perhaps Russell Wilson winds up with the Raiders. I don't know. They have their quarterback situations hard to fathom here. I think Russell Wilson, we both feel, is over the hill. But in this situation, maybe a reunion with Carroll, who I understand they've gotten back together. They're friends again. So that's a possibility. I wonder how Bill Belichick feels.
I don't think he gives a damn. I think that think about it. He made a commitment to UNC. Tom Brady asked him about it. He said, don't pick up the phone again. He just signed his contract with UNC. They have to wait at least 1 year, and then after June 1st, it's a $1 million buyout. Yeah, well, if a team wants him now, it's a $10 million buyout.
After a year in college, he's going to be interested in coming back. And now there's
who would want him at this point?
There's precedent with Pete Carroll, who's older than Belichick, getting a 3-year deal with a 4-year option, a team option.
Here's the difference between Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick. Pete Carroll didn't go 4-13 the last time he coached. He instead he actually had a winning record at 9-8 the last time we saw him, and it was a shock.
Playoffs, though.
Okay, Belichick hasn't made the playoffs since 2021.
Yeah, well.
And it got worse and worse and worse and worse. At least Pete Carroll stayed somewhat stagnant, and it was actually a deteration of his defense.
I think it's a good
the
pick.
Big issue was.
I think Pete Carroll, I like watching him on the sidelines, running up and down the sidelines, cheering a team on. He's the amount of enthusiasm and energy that guy has is amazing. And, he's in my age bracket, so I'm rooting for him.
Well, I think that it is a good pick because I think what the Raiders need is accountability and a culture builder. And I think as it stands, I think Pete Carroll was really the only option that could be a big culture builder, because I think that with every top candidate gone, Ben Johnson, he wasn't going to be a culture builder necessarily because this is his first head coaching opportunity. He goes over to the Chicago Bears that have a similar skill set, obviously not to the pedigree of the Detroit Lions, but it has a lot of things in place. A rookie quarterback now going into year 2, but he has a lot of promise, a lot of exterior weapons, a lot of wideouts, slot receivers and whatnot. I would say a sustainable defense, and the only thing he needs to work on is a legitimate offensive line, because that's really their only deficit on that team. When it comes to Pete Carroll, though, I think this is actually a pretty good one because, like I said, he'll be a guy who's going to be there. My guess is he won't finish out his contract. He'll retire within a couple years because he is going to turn 74 by week 2, which he will be the oldest head coach in NFL history. I think the big part about how the Raiders could be successful, and I don't think they will have massive amounts of success, and I guess really the question is, how do you define success? Because you did go, 4-13 this past year. So how would you define success? Would you say getting more than 4 wins is successful? Well, in that case, I think that you can go 5-12 and be perfectly fine. If you're thinking about going 500 or around 500 and potentially making a playoff run, well, I don't think you're quite there yet. Because if you look at Pete Carroll's coaching history, he did his best with a strong defense and a very suitable running game. And as the years winded down of him and Russell Wilson out in Seattle, they only had 1 year when they were a top 10 passing team. But as the defense deteriorated, I mean, he never had a top 10 defense from 2017 until 2023. He's a defensive guy. And it got so bad that the last year that he coached was his worst defensive coaching year in his entire coaching career, was the 30th in the NFL. So if he can get a Raiders defense that has some pieces like Max Crosby, Jack Jones, Christian Wilkins, there's some pieces there. But offensively, you had the worst running back group in the NFL, Zamir White and Alexander Mattison. I said from the start of the season they weren't going to bring you anywhere. Then you had a quarterback battle between Aiden O'Connell and also Gardner Minshew, who, by the way, couldn't grasp the OC's offense until about midway through training camp. That's not great. And you also had a quarterback battle up until week 1, and then throughout the season you also had a quarterback battle. So the quarterback position was a complete screw-up. The running game was non-sustainable. The offensive line got hurt but wasn't great overall. And those weapons you had, like Devontae Adams, yeah, he got himself out of there really quick. And then really Jacoby Myers is your only real guy, I would say. But defensively, it fits in right into Pete Carroll's wheelhouse. So I think the defense will be better than what it was last year. And I think that it will really determine how well your running game is, because you had a slightly above average defense at number 15, but you had the worst running game in the NFL last year. So if you can improve on that, and by the way, you only averaged 3.6 yards an attempt, I can completely understand why. When the running backs that you had were Alexander Mattison and Amir Abdullah, Zamir White, Sincere McCormick, I can understand why you had the lowest yards per attempt. So I'm not trying to be, pessimistic here. I'm just saying, do not expect the Raiders to be in the 500 ballpark in year 1 with Pete Carroll. Yes, he was 74, but we have to realize that during his time in Seattle, his defense, he's a defensive head coach, his defense ended up being the worst defense he's ever coached in his coaching career, and the offense completely plummeted and was a top 10 passing game one singular time. Now you have an opportunity to draft a quarterback, but this is not a good quarterback draft class, so you'll have to wait and see for that. But my guess is you're probably going to have a losing record. I think that's a definite. I think that you'll be better as a culture, and there'll be a big morale boost, and I think you picked up Pete Carroll at a good time because he was really the only sustainable coach left, and now you have 2 teams that are desperate for head coaches in the New Orleans Saints and also in the Dallas Cowboys, who we're going to talk about later on in the show. So I think it was a perfectly fine hire. I just don't think you'll see large amounts of success. At least this 1 year. Could 2 years down the line you get around 500 and make a decent playoff push for number 7? Sure. I don't think 2025 you'll be around 500. I think you'll be about 6-11. I want to say that's probably the realistic record for the Las Vegas Raiders next year.
Yeah, I think their problem is they had a terrible season, and generally you get an easier schedule when that happens. But they're in the toughest division. They're in a very difficult division. They could wind up losing all of their games in the division. They might not win a game in the division.
Well, by the way, I just want to say, Pete Carroll's record with the other AFC West coaches, he's 5-4 against Jim Harbaugh, 3-4 against Sean Payton, and 2-3 against Andy Reid.
Yeah,
so he has a below 500 record if you combine all those.
But he had better team with the Seattle when he played them.
Oh yeah.
This team is very poor. He's got a lot of building to do there, and he's going to have to build a coaching staff. He's got a brand new GM. Who he doesn't know. I don't think he knows that guy at all. I think if they ever met, I wonder. I don't know.
Well, one was an assistant GM for Tampa, and the other one was an advisor for Seattle. So the chances are probably don't know each other very well.
No. So I like Pete. As I said, I like Pete Carroll. I wish him success. I think he's got his work cut out for him.
Well, since we're here, why not let's go through their schedule real quick.
Okay.
So
that'd be great.
I'll give you a pen. You can write down wins and losses. Just mark them off one by one. So here we go. Now, these are obviously not week to week, but we do know their opponents. So let's go. Let's go at Denver.
Loss.
At Houston. By the way, Houston just fired its offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I think that's probably a loss, too.
Loss. At Indy.
I'm giving them a win on that one.
At Kansas City.
Loss.
Versus Denver.
Versus Denver?
Yeah. Well, because it's home and away.
Yeah. I'm going to say they win one game in the division, so that one I give them a win.
Okay. Versus Kansas City.
Loss.
And then versus Chargers at Chargers.
Loss.
Both?
Oh,
Well, versus and at Chargers, because it's a division game. You play them away and at home.
Oh, at home, I think they win. They might win against the Chargers.
Okay, versus Jacksonville.
So that was the game at home?
Yes.
The one you gave me? Okay.
At home.
Yep. Next.
Versus Jacksonville.
That's a win.
Versus Tennessee.
That's a win.
Versus Dallas.
That's a loss.
Versus Giants.
That's a win.
Versus Browns.
That's a win.
Versus Bears. You love the Bears, don't you?
I hate the Bears. I think that's a loss.
At Chargers now.
Chargers. That's a loss.
At Patriots.
That's a win.
At Eagles.
That's a loss.
At Commanders.
That's a loss.
So total up the wins.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wins.
You have them going 8-9 in year
8
one.
9. That's probably optimistic.
Interesting. Okay. Once again,
I would say if they go 8-9, that's a huge success.
Well, I
for
think
Pete
you have
Carroll.
them splitting against the Chargers, which I don't think is going to happen. I think the Chargers are going to beat them
so
both
maybe
times.
it's 7-10. It's somewhere between 8-9 and 7-10 in my.
And depending if the Giants get a good quarterback, who knows what they'll look like.
The Giants ain't going to win.
I'm trying to be. I ripped on the Giants for the past 3 years. I want to be a little bit optimistic. Maybe
Giants
this
are
time.
not going to do anything next year. That'll be
That's fair.
Darren Dable's last year.
Probably.
My view.
So yeah, I'm probably going 6-11. I think that's the most realistic record because you need a running game, you need a better offensive line, you need a quarterback, you need more wide receivers. Although maybe Spytech could help you out in that regard, and you need a more sustainable defense. Your defense was fine, just needs to be a little bit better. Especially, I want to make sure I get the numbers here. Especially against the pass, you were 15th. You could be a little bit better than that. You were better against the run than you were against the pass. So
I think that Pete Carroll will establish a better culture, and I think that makes that's worth a few wins.
that's fair.
Right?
I'll agree with that.
I think that the players will respect him and play
I
hard
think
for
he'll demand
him.
respect.
I think they will respect him and they will play hard for him because he not only will demand it, but they'll be impressed that somebody 74 years old is out there running up and down the sidelines as excited as this guy is.
I don't know how much running he'll do this time around.
He says he's in the best shape he's been in a long time.
Obviously, we'll have to wait and see just how long that lasts. But let's get into our next one here because we would have broken this news. We had the news ready to go on Friday's show, and reportedly it was done on Friday, just not announced, which is Aaron Gelnn is the next head coach of the New York Jets. I want to make sure I get this fact correct. With Aaron Gelnn being signed to the Jets, this is their sixth head coach, defensive head coach. Seventh head coach. 6 of them have been defensive coaches since 2000. They love defensive coaches, and the last few haven't been that great. We're talking about Todd Bowles. We're talking about Robert Saleh. Aaron Gelnn, we don't know exactly how it'll turn out. So who knows what Aaron Gelnn, we're going to discuss it now, what Aaron Glenn's future looks like. But there's a lot of questions to go around. For instance, what's your quarterback situation look like? Are you going to try to retain Garrett Wilson? He seems very displeased with the current situation. The offensive line was underwhelming. You're in probably the second biggest market in the NFL. There's a lot of, and you also had extremely high expectations last year and completely crapped the bed this year. So here's my question to you: do you think that this is a good move for the Jets to hire Aaron Gelnn to be their head coach?
I think it's okay, but I don't understand why the Jets keep hiring defensive coaches when their offense is a mess. Why are they hiring a defensive coach right now? They needed an offensive coach. Their defense is okay. There's nothing wrong with their defense. In fact, the defense is better before Saleh was fired. It slipped a little bit after that, but it's still a very good defense. It's still got a lot of quality players on it. Aaron Gelnn is a defensive coach. I don't know that he knows all that much about offense. He's going to have to bring in some offensive help there to get the offense going, and he's got nobody on his staff that knows that now. He's going to get clean house on the offensive side. It's a start over for the offense, and that doesn't bode well for them. He's been with them. He started his career with them. He was drafted 12th pick in the 1994 draft. He played from 94 to 2001 for them. He had a 15-year playing career. The Jets were a mess when he was a player. It was a carousel of changing schemes, leadership styles, and philosophies. Had 5 head coaches over his 8 years there, and 5 more since. There's been 5 more head coaches since. He understands the media circus and how to filter that out here in New York, to filter out the criticism. So I think that's a plus for the Jets. He knows that. He played for a lot of other coaches and a lot of other systems, and that might be a plus because he's seen basically everything. He played for Pete Carroll. He played for Bill Parcells. He played for Bill Belichick. He played for Mike Nolan. He played for Todd Bowles. He played for Herm Edwards. He played for Dom Capers. He played for Bill Parcells, and he coached for Sean Payton. Because defensive backs, coaches, for the Saints, he became their defensive backs coach in 2016. He did that for 4 years. There's a benefit of playing for so many coaches, I think, and an appreciation of technique, the connection tissue between all the defensive schemes. He knows the 3-4. He knows the 4-3. He knows man. He knows zone. He knows single or too high. And some of these techniques have common threads to them, so he knows what to do and the basics of how to do it. So on the defensive side of the ball, I give him a lot of credit, particularly what he did with the Lions. I mean, when he went there, he started there, they were a joke. I mean, I don't think they won this first couple seasons there. They hardly won games. I think they were 14-33 when he was there through 2018 through 2020 before they started turning it around. He appreciates how the scheme fits the players and how the players fit the scheme. I think that's really important. This is something he emphasizes. He said that many coaches don't have the benefit of the kind of exposure that he's had to all these different coaches, all these different schemes. He's going to take the talent that he has and fit a defense to it rather than trying to take his scheme and say, okay, guys, you got to play it this way. I think that will work. I think that will work out pretty well for him, particularly with the Jets who have a very talented defense. I think their defense will be great. He says you look at your defense and you design a defense around the talent of your personnel. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Lots of defensive personnel changes in Detroit, particularly in 2024, and he made that work. I mean, he took the talent he had there in the last 6 weeks or so, and up until the game against the Commanders, he was doing fine. And if he'd won that game, they would be playing for the championship game this week. So I think that, he's definitely an excellent defensive coach. And the Lions were a joke, as I mentioned, when he took on the job for them. He ran a 3-4 based on the personnel and had a lot of problems. They went 14-33, as I mentioned, with one tie from 2018 to 20. The offensive he met with lots. He says he met with lots of offensive coordinators to learn how they build game plans. He has relentless curiosity. And then the Lions, they got better personnel. And in 2022, they got Hutchinson and Pascal, and then Davis, Arnold, and Robinson, and then they were on their way, and their defense turned out to be really good. And it showed when they went 15-1, 15-2, right? 15-2 this past year. He has an obsession with understanding the opponent. The Jets already have, as I said, a good defense. Can Glenn make it better? That'll be interesting to see. He's a defensive coach with big offensive problems. I think that's what's going to hurt him in the first couple of years here. He says, I'm a coach. I just happen to be on the defense, so he's not so worried about that. He won't have 4 years to turn it around, even though his contract may be that long, because in New York, you got probably 2 years, and then they'll be all over you, and they're crying for you to be fired, and the weak leadership in the Jets organization will side with the fans, and he'll be gone. The Jets have a 14-year playoff drought. They've had 4 head coaches, 7 different starting quarterbacks in that period of time. The players are going to get an authentic Aaron Gelnn. That's what he says. Good luck to him.
I don't think it's a bad hire. I don't at all. And I think that Because what we saw with Robert Saleh once he got fired is that the defense the defense started to be a little bit shaky. I know they were 2-3 when Robert Saleh got fired, but the defense wasn't the issue. Is Rodgers, he had a 3-interception game, one of which was returned for a pick six against the Vikings. And Rodgers just wasn't looking good. He was coming off that Achilles injury, and he was playing his first few games coming back from the Achilles injury, so he wasn't in full form, and throughout the season he had a couple moments. But through and through, he wasn't that good. He wasn't anywhere near his MVP level type of a performance, just what we saw a few years ago with Green Bay. We saw more so, which was 2022 Rodgers hovering around 500, not really being that separator from his greatness to his old age. He's not aging gracefully. Now, the issue is you do have a massive cap hit with Aaron Rodgers. I think it's like a $50 million cap hit. So you have an Aaron Rodgers situation that could come into play. But I think we have to take a look at how Aaron Gelnn was as a head coach, or as a defensive coordinator, what he could look like as a head coach. The Jets, yes, they were not a great team and definitely fell through on their expectations, but they still had the third best defense in the NFL. They just couldn't stop people from scoring. They were the 20th worst scoring or 20th best scoring defense in the NFL. Aaron Glenn's defenses with the Detroit Lions, and we thought they were, revolutionary towards the very end. But under Aaron Gelnn, these were the rankings. They were total defense, 29th, dead last, 19th, and this past year, 20th. I think that they were allowed to be a bottom 12, bottom 10 defense for multiple years because Ben Johnson did a beautiful job on the offense and created consistently a top 10 point differential team. For 3 out of the 4 years that Aaron Gelnn was there, they were a top 10 point differential team. And I think that if you cannot establish a at least competent offense, and if Rodgers is there, I don't think you can because he is a toxic player. He would be toxic to any culture Glenn's trying to build around there. Well, then how are you going to be, let's just say, Aaron Gelnn and the Jets do a repeat of the scoring defense that the Lions had, let's just say, just for the sake of the argument, rather the Jets had, so the 20th best, they allowed 23.8 points a game. Let's say you do that, but your offense remains somewhat of the same. Are they going to be much different than they are right now? I'm not saying the Jets now are going to be a playoff team or even a Super Bowl team because I don't think that's going to happen for who knows how long. Because they can't get quarterback right. They're underwhelming on defense when it matters the most. Their offensive line, which we thought was revolutionary, it was in the top 10 before the season started, and it dropped off to around middle of the pack. They completely fell apart. So who knows what's going to happen with their offensive line. You have a disgruntled wide receiver one who got a bit ticked off when Devontae Adams started to get looks, and he wasn't getting that many looks. How are you going to fix all those problems with your defense still being basically bottom third of the league, and yet we think of you as such a great head coach? I think it's more so you are blowing teams out, so the defense, or rather the offense that you were playing up against became predictable. Because Jared Goff could have a 3-interception game, but you have Jahmyr Gibbs who could run for 200 yards, put up several touchdowns, and all of a sudden you're up by 14. Now the opposing team has to pass all the time. So you know what they're going to do. It becomes predictable. And we saw late in this season, the defense went from being really good to being opportunistic. And the perfect example I have for that is the 49ers game. Brock Purdy was going up and down the field against Detroit's defense. And this was a team that 2 weeks prior, Kyle Shanahan said, yeah, we kind of knew we were out of it just based on the math. Well, that's not something you want to hear from a guy that we consider a top 3 coach in the NFL, but that was his mindset at that time. They weren't technically mathematically eliminated until they lost that game that week. But yet this team, which was crumbling in front of our very eyes after going to a Super Bowl last year, was going up and down the field on Detroit's defense. And it wasn't until Kelvin Joseph, I believe his name is, came up with 2 great interceptions. Kirby Joseph came up with 2 great interceptions. And that's the only reason why you could have stopped the 49ers offense and end up winning that game. Otherwise, we may be talking about how the Lions weren't the number 1 seed this year. Maybe they were gone in the wild card. Who knows? Because of how banged up they were. I think that the way they got to the number 1 seed had a lot to do with Ben Johnson and this offense, and then the defense being opportunistic and not being a dominant defense. Because otherwise, the numbers would speak for themselves, and the numbers didn't.
They had the huge injury problem, though, right? They lost Hutchinson.
But this isn't only this year, though.
No, I understand. But this year, they had the makings of what looked like a really very, very good defense. And given what happened to it with all those injuries, it still played pretty good. You got to give Aaron Gelnn some credit for that, I think. But I still think he's a defensive coach, and the Jets offense has so many problems. I mean, I don't understand why their running game wasn't better. They had two really good, quite good running backs. Hall is somebody that in his rookie season, he looked like he was on his way to being all-world.
They were the second worst running team in the NFL.
Yeah,
and they ran it the fewest
and
amount of time.
The other guy, who's the other guy?
Braylon Allen?
Yeah, he's a big back. I mean, he's powerful. I just don't think their scheme was a mess. They really had no. I mean, they got rid of Hackett, and Salah's the defensive guy. They brought in the other guy,
Jeff Ulbrich, as the interim.
He was a defensive guy.
Todd Downing became the.
When are they going to learn? You need an offensive guy. You got to, if you want to fix the offense, you need an offensive guy. Aaron Glenn's never done the offense before, and now he's inheriting a huge mess. You can't bring back Aaron Rodgers. I agree, he's toxic. Who are you going to get? You can't have a rookie quarterback out there. I don't see that. How can they have a rookie quarterback?
Well,
with
they had
all
the seventh
problems
overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, well, there aren't many good quarterbacks in this draft.
I don't disagree.
The two top ones are going to be gone before 7. So there isn't one in the draft. Who is there out there? What journeyman quarterback are they going to bring in this time? It's. I think it's going to be a tough year for them. I don't think they're going to be. They have the great defense. They've had that 3-4 years. They haven't had a quarterback. Their offense continued to be a mess. They win. Last year they won the four games. The year before they won 7. They before that, I don't know, what was it, 7 or 8? They just can't. They haven't made the playoffs in 14 years. This is a repeat of the formula that has not taken them where they want to go. Plus, they got an owner who has no faith in the team and no willingness to wait, and a media that is right there with him. They're going to jump all over Aaron Gelnn if he winds up. Starts the season at 0-5. I think they're going to be all over him. I mean, probably they can beat the Patriots, right? They'll probably have a chance to beat them. Although the Patriots are going to be a lot better with their coaching changes that they've made, and they're bringing back Josh McDaniels. So I don't know. What do the Jets, let's look at their schedule. What's their schedule look like?
Well, I got to bring that up now. You caught me off guard here, so you got to bear with me. The Jets' 2025 schedule looks like this. At Baltimore.
Loss.
At Bills.
Loss.
At Bengals.
Loss.
At Jaguars.
Win.
At Dolphins.
At Dolphins, loss.
At Patriots.
I would say that probably is. I think it could be a win.
At Saints.
At Saints might be a win.
Bills versus Bills.
Loss.
Versus Dolphins.
Loss.
Versus Patriots.
Loss.
They lose to the Patriots.
Oh wait,
at home.
I'm going to flip it.
It's fine. You just keep it as is anyway. Versus Browns.
That's a win.
Versus Steelers.
Loss.
Versus Falcons.
I think that's a loss.
Versus Panthers.
I think the Panthers are going to be better next year, but I'll give them a win on that one.
Versus Broncos.
Loss.
Versus Dallas.
Loss.
At Tampa.
At Tampa, loss. I give them.
You have 4 wins there, I think.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins.
5-12. So, if I'm not mistaken, they're exactly where they are today.
Yeah.
5-12.
I don't see them getting. How can they get much better? Aaron Gelnn has never been a head coach before.
True.
He already has a good defense. This is going to make it much better. It was number 3 overall this past season.
20th in scoring, though.
Yeah, but
give up points. Your offense couldn't sustain that.
Maybe he can improve that a little bit, but he didn't do it at the Lions. You just said he was never much better than a 20th defense.
Well, there's a difference between it. That was yardage. Scoring defense, they were 7th in 2024.
Okay.
23rd in 2023, 28th in 2022, And then finally, the first season he was there, they were 31st. So they give up a bunch of points until this year. That's what opportunistic defense. That's what the Lions defense turned into. And
how many games do you think the Jets will win?
I don't disagree with your number.
Okay.
I don't, because I think it's very difficult because if you don't keep Aaron Rodgers, which I think that is the right move to do. You cannot have Aaron Rodgers in the building because we've heard from several players that they're walking on eggshells around him, and we heard not even halfway through the season, we heard white flags wanted to be thrown, and some of the players wanted the season to be over already.
That's a big cap hit, right?
Yeah, why?
That stuff makes
million?
the defense suffer a little. I mean, the offense suffer even more.
You got to hit on draft picks. You have a brand new GM coming in there. You got to hit on draft picks, and if you don't, we're going to be in a similar situation.
You got to hit on draft picks. You need to find a quarterback that's going to be at least serviceable.
When in doubt, just think.
Who
it's
can
the New
they
York
get?
Jets.
Who can they get for quarterback? Tell me. Who is out there that they could get that
Kirk
would be
Cousins
serviceable?
is going to be available. Sam Darnold's going to be available.
Yeah, Sam Darnold is going to want to go back to the Jets.
Geno Smith may be available.
He won't want to go back there either.
I'm
Kirk
just telling you
Cousins,
who's out
maybe
there.
you're right. Kirk Cousins.
Ryan Tannehill can make a reemergence into the NFL.
He wouldn't be any good. Maybe Kirk Cousins. Maybe he could be the serviceable quarterback.
Just throwing names out.
You got to protect him. He's not mobile.
You also have to fix the offensive line, which could be an issue.
They should be able to do that. I would think anything around the quarterback is a key position, and there aren't that many options. Maybe you're right. Kirk Cousins is the guy.
But we all saw what Kirk Cousins looked like with the Falcons, and the Falcons had
more
sustainable pieces.
With Kirk Cousins, maybe they could get to 7
wins?
Yeah, maybe they could get to 7
wins. I mean, I think they play the Falcons, so that'll be, they play at Falcons.
7 and 10.
They play at home against the Falcons, so Kirk Cousins could get revenge.
Yeah, so that would be a win.
Hey, who knows?
Yeah.
All right, let's get into this news, because this was ridiculous. This went back and forth for a couple of days, and finally today it became official that now former Buccaneers offensive coordinator Liam Coen has now become the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, he met with the Jaguars a couple of days ago and decided to take himself out of the running because Trent Baalke was there, the Jaguars GM. And then Coen came out and fired Baalke, and then Liam Coen put himself back in the running, accepted the job after verbally agreeing with the Buccaneers to become one of the highest paid offense coordinators in the NFL. Now, the Jaguars owner, Shad Khan, came out and said this today on hiring Liam Coen. To repeat my message earlier this week, I'm deeply committed to building a winner here in Jacksonville. I also believe in being judged by actions, not words. That's why I took swift and decisive action this week to hire Liam Coen as the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am pumped that Liam is accepting the challenge and opportunity to build a winner that Jaguars fans and partners deserve. I know our players feel the same. Now, Trevor Lawrence, he's your starting quarterback. You were banged up with injuries. Offensive line wasn't that great to begin with. Your running game was very lackluster and disappointing. You do have Brian Thomas Jr., though. He was actually one of the best wide receivers this season, and he was only a rookie. So my question to you is, this entire situation of going back and forth, saying yes to the Buccaneers after saying no to the Jaguars, and then turning around and saying yes to the Jaguars, no on the Buccaneers, do you have any problem with how this situation actually turned out?
I do have problems with it. I think Shad Khan is. I don't think he should stay out of it. He should hire some professional people in the front office and let them run the show and pick these people. Him getting involved, I think, it leads to big mistakes, and I think this is potentially a big mistake. As you said, on Wednesday, Coen declined an in-person interview with the Jaguars and accepted a contract extension with the Bucs and a raise from the Bucs that would have made him the highest paid offensive coordinator. And guess how long he's been an offensive coordinator? One season with Baker Mayfield. He'd been the offensive coordinator. And, altogether, he has 5 years of experience. His prior 4 seasons were all with the Rams working under Sean McVay, which, that's not bad. Sean McVay, I think, is one of the best coaches in the league. But he didn't have that much experience, right? And here he does. He ghosts the Bucs, signs up for a contract, then finds out from the Jaguars that they're willing to fire Baalke, which is what he was holding over their heads. So he reconsidered the job after they fired him and took it right there. They talked him into it, got him over there. And one day he took the job. And I think he's got a very small body of work. I think he might have maybe he got lucky with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, he had a good season. Well, Baker Mayfield is probably going to have a good season anyway. The guy is on the rebound. He had 41 TDs this year after 28 the prior year. Well, he had a new receiver there. That McMillan guy was very good. Mike Evans had another 1,000-yard season, so it's good wide receivers. He had another year of experience with those guys. The running game got better. Maybe you give Coen a little credit for that. I think their running game was 88 yards and 23. They got to 149. But again, they had the good rookie there, Bucky Irving. He came in there, and White, who was the experienced veteran, had a decent year. So it might not be all Coen's doing. I don't know. His philosophy is the quarterback should never feel handcuffed at the line of scrimmage and always have solutions. Well, that's good. I hope that's true. Can he help Trevor Lawrence feel that way? I don't know. Trevor Lawrence been hurt a lot, hasn't played well, been a disappointment for the most part. I mean, despite one season where they snuck into the playoffs at the end and managed to upset the Chargers when they definitely should have lost that game. That's it. That's it for Trevor Lawrence. So, Coen, he's the reason that Balky got fired. Balky didn't do that bad a job, actually. He brought in Brian Thomas. He brought in those some other good defensive players too. His drafting has been reasonably decent. The coaching that's been crappy, and the offensive play of the quarterback has been lousy.
That's a bit of a hot take. Just going to throw that out there.
But he was the front runner. He was the front runner after Johnson accepted the Bears job. Khan wanted a young, offensive-minded coach, and he got one. And Coen walked in with his limited experience and said, fire the GM or I'm not coming. Went back, signed a big deal saying he was going to stay with the Bucs. Then took off after they told him, we'll fire the guy. Signed a deal, and now he's with them. So we'll see how he does.
My problem is be a man of your word. You initially took an interview with the Jaguars. It went well. You were one of their 3 finalists, ended up being one of their 2 finalists, you and Robert Saleh. Then, according to the report you asked for more money. Then the contract that they offered you was relying upon you not taking the second interview with the Jaguars. You said, give me some time. They gave you the time. Then you came back. They offered you the contract, which would make you, the highest, or it was like $4.5 million for you to remain the OC with the Buccaneers. You verbally agree to it, and then you keep pushing back the time to actually sign the contract. Then you ghosted the Bucs. Then you told them at 5 p.m., with barely updating any information, saying that you're staying in Jacksonville because there was a family concern. But then you barely talked about the Jaguars. And then the next time the Bucs hear you, breaking news, you're now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it's not a good image for Liam Coen. And I think that it is, while yes, Baker Mayfield did have a pretty good season, Baker Mayfield had a very good season with Dave Canales, because I think going from the Browns to the Panthers, those are 2 unstable organizations. Now you go over to the Buccaneers that were just coming off of a massive, really good run with Tom Brady as their quarterback. So feelings are high, morale is high. You come in, you have something to prove. You fly under the radar and perform extremely well. So they give you an extension. And he followed up with he had over 4,000 yards this season. So maybe this is Baker Mayfield rather than the OC, because Baker Mayfield now has done it with back-to-back offensive coordinators. And Liam Coen has had a couple stints. He had a stint with Los Angeles as the assistant wide receivers coach, and then the assistant quarterback coach. Then he went to Kentucky. Then he came back as the OC of the Rams. Then went back to Kentucky, and now became the OC of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now he's the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that the way that this situation panned out proves that the Jaguars are one of the worst run organizations in the NFL. Because the report was instantly, as soon as you fired Doug Peterson, there was a report out instantly that incoming head coaching hires are discouraged that you kept Trent Baalke. They did not want him in the building, but you kept him for another 2.5 weeks, and all the good head coaches started to be picked off. Aaron Gelnn, Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel. The list kept going and going and going and going and going until you were left with what I'm calling kind of scraps. Because now, who you got? Mike McCarthy, Liam Coen, Deion Sanders, Jason Witten, Brian Schottenheimer, who's the Cowboys are only looking at, Kellen Moore, who I'm pretty sure the Cowboys are the only ones looking at. You're not exactly filling your team with qualified talent. And going off a 2-time offensive coordinator with 2 different stints in the NFL as the OC for 2 different teams, and now he's the head coach and expected to revive Trevor Lawrence, fix an offensive line, fix a running game, and fix a terrible defense, I find that a little bit hard to believe. So I don't think things will change drastically for Jacksonville. I think the way that Trevor Lawrence looked this year was shocking, and I think that Liam Coen, I don't think it's a great hire. And Tampa Bay is pissed. They are extremely upset about this entire situation.
They should be.
And this is over not a head coach, not an established head coach, over a one-time offensive coordinator with their franchise.
They would have been much better off to pick Robert Saleh.
Well,
right?
he's going back for the DC job with San Francisco.
Okay, but he was the finalist. They could have picked him. They could
still pick Mike McCarthy if they wanted to.
That's what I was going to say. In terms of you saying there's scraps out there, Mike McCarthy to me is not scraps. I think he would be would have been a great choice too, and he would have been more balanced offense defense.
Maybe
Saleh is a defensive guy, but the Jaguars defense is horrible this year.
Yeah.
Right? It was horrible. This guy, Coen, isn't going to fix that.
Second worst in the NFL.
He isn't going to fix that. They hired him exclusively because of Trevor Lawrence, who they gave the over $50 million contract. $55 million per year. They overpaid him, and he underperformed big time, and he's hurt. He gets hurt a lot now.
Yeah.
So I write them off. I mean, we could go through their list. I wouldn't give them more than...
You want to do it?
Yeah, sure. Let's
go
do that.
through it. Why not? So the Jacksonville Jaguars, and again, the schedules aren't released. These are just the future opponents that they're going to go up against in 2025.
Uh-huh.
So here we go. 2025 opponents start with at Cardinals.
Loss.
At Bengals.
Loss.
At Denver.
Loss.
At Houston.
Loss.
At Indy.
I think that's a loss.
Versus Houston.
Versus Houston. I think that's a loss.
Versus Indy.
I'll give him a win on that one.
Versus Tennessee.
Win.
Versus Chiefs.
Loss.
Versus Chargers.
Loss.
Versus Rams.
Loss.
Versus Seattle.
Loss.
Versus Jets. Whatever it is.
I don't know
here.
what I had. I think I had loss.
Versus
No,
Carolina.
I think I had win for that one.
Versus Carolina.
Versus Carolina. I'd say that one is a loss.
At Raiders.
I think that's a loss.
At San Francisco.
Loss.
At Tennessee.
Win.
I think you got 3 wins there.
1, 2,
4.
3.
You have 4 wins.
4 wins.
4 wins.
Yep.
Which would put them exactly in the same position that you have them right now.
4 and 13. Yep.
You have them in the exact same position.
They ain't going to improve. They're not going to improve with this guy. He's never been a head coach. He only has 5 years of NFL experience, all with one team. Oh, well, 2 teams. So he had 1 year with the Bucs.
He had 2 different stints with Los Angeles, and this was his first stint with Tampa Bay. Now, currently, Jacksonville is the 5th overall pick.
I think the Bucs offense is more about Baker Mayfield and those skill players than it was about this Coen guy.
I completely agree with you, 100%. And I
understand why the Bucs are pissed. They're probably happy he's gone now.
Oh, I would completely agree. You know, being ghosted, and then not only that, Coen saying, "Well, hold on, how about the next day?" And then I could do it by the next morning, and then halfway through the day, he's like, "Okay, give me the next day," and then the next day, while he's chilling in Jacksonville, ghosting the organization that just put you on the map, that allowed you to be the next head coach of the Jaguars ultimately, and then out of nowhere, you become the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I would 100% be pissed too. 100%. All right, coming up, the Dallas Cowboys. We thought they were bad and falling apart. Now they are crumbling, and who knows when they're going to finally be able to patch up all those pieces. We're going to discuss what's going on about their coaching situation, as well as it's the AFC and NFC championship games this weekend. Everything on the line for a trip to Super Bowl 59. Will Jayden Daniels make NFL history? Will Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs be primed for a three-peat? Or will the Eagles make it back to the Super Bowl after their 2022 loss to the Chiefs? Or can the Bills finally get over the hump of the playoff woes against the Kansas City Chiefs and finally get that win? We're going to discuss all of that coming up right after this break.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of tonight's show. So, if things were bad, and there was a survey out there when Mike McCarthy got fired from the Athletic, and I think 70% of the people who took the poll said that the Cowboys were going in the complete opposite direction. And now there's a report out there saying that the Cowboys are nearing a deal to sign their offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer, who this was his second year with the Cowboys. And matter of fact, he didn't even call plays this year. And he has become the leading candidate to become the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. So here's my question to you, Dad. Is this a bad look for Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys?
The Cowboys Nation is very disappointed in this, and I can understand why. Why? Schottenheimer has never distinguished himself in any way of being fantastic, right? I mean, I guess Dak Prescott had a career year, not last year when he got hurt, but the year before. But they can't win in the playoffs. They're terrible in the playoffs, and Schottenheimer was definitely overshadowed by Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn, who was their defensive coordinator when they were winning 12 games. So I don't know why they would even consider Schottenheimer to be their head coaching candidate. But I understand the search is far from over and that new candidates are emerging. The idea of hiring Schottenheimer isn't coming from Jerry Jones, is my understanding. It's coming from his son, Stephen Jones, who was trying to convince Jerry. And that never is going to work. The resentment from Jerry, who would prefer to continue evaluating options, I think is big. You got Deion Sanders out there. You have Rich Pisaccia, who may get some consideration. I'd like to see that happen. It could be a few more weeks, I think, before any kind of decision is made. And, Jerry Jones, he's always late. He's always late in getting things done. And his son here trying to speed things up is only going to make him have more resentment. I don't think it's going to be Schottenheimer, and I don't think you're going to know for a while yet.
I think that this just proves how the Dallas Cowboys, I said this years ago, we didn't do the show years ago, but I said years ago, why are the Cowboys called America's team? They haven't won in, at that point, probably 24 years. Well, now it's going on probably 30 years of not even making the conference championship, let alone winning a Super Bowl. Not only that, this is a terrible job. And you're not even going after credible hires. You're going after an offensive coordinator that didn't call plays this past year. And you fired a guy who I think contested some of your ideas. And who actually, towards the end of the year, didn't do that bad of a job coaching. With Cooper Rush and a defense that wasn't great to begin with and a running game that was dead through 90% of the season, it nearly beat the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, if it wasn't for a special teams blunder, we're probably talking about the fact that they beat the Cincinnati Bengals. So, and that's a beautiful point. They were 10.5-point underdogs, and they ended up beating the Washington Commanders. So, I do think they're going to hire Schottenheimer. But I do not think he's the best guy for the job. I just think he's the easiest guy for Jerry Jones to push around. He needs yes men in his life because now it's all on Jerry Jones. All the blame is on Jerry Jones because he doesn't have a choking head coach at the position. In fact, he has no head coach at the position. He's not even looking at NFL head coaching hires as a potential next head coach. He's looking at Kellen Moore, and he can't hire him until the Eagles either lose in the championship game or lose in the Super Bowl. So he may need to wait 3 weeks in order to hire Kellen Moore if he wants Kellen Moore. I would have honestly pursued Robert Saleh if I was Jerry Jones, because I think Robert Saleh has a lot of respect in the NFL. It's just Woody Johnson was pissed at him because who the hell knows why. He got embarrassed out overseas probably.
Locked him in too.
Yeah, Rodgers. Yeah. That was probably part of it. But Brian Schottenheimer, his dad is famous. His dad was a good head coach. Schottenheimer's been in the league a pretty long time and has basically nothing to his name. No real high accolades. Didn't do a tremendous job. He got bounced around the league a bunch. I believe he was with the Jets when they made the conference championship. But he also made a crucial blunder in the conference championship against the Steelers, which got him fired. I might add that. So I don't think this is a good hire. I think this is a yes-man hire. And I understand that based on the reporting, this isn't even Jerry Jones' doing. So I'm not gonna call out Jerry Jones unless Jerry Jones hires Brian Schottenheimer, which I think he will, because you have to wait 3 weeks. You have to go after Robert Saleh, which I still think is a perfectly acceptable hire at this point, because it's that, wait 3 weeks for Kellen Moore, or sign an offensive coordinator who the prior season didn't even call plays for you. You can't hire Mike McCarthy, you just fired the guy, because you couldn't come to a length of contract agreement. So, for me, bad hire. Expect Cowboys, because I do think, and you might disagree with me, I think that there will be a battle in the NFC East for the bottom of the barrel between the Giants and the Cowboys. And I think that the way that Dak Prescott played at the beginning of this year, with no run game, defense that wasn't that great, and if Brian Schottenheimer is your head coach, I'd say that there's a decent shot, at least early in the season, that the Cowboys could hover at the bottom of the NFC East for a little while. Now, I think that ultimately, based on how tough the Giants' schedule is, they will ultimately be the last team in the NFC East. But this would be a terrible hire because there were so many more candidates. Your season ended June 5th. You waited, 5 days, I think, to fire Mike McCarthy because you were trying to get an extension for him that you couldn't agree to it. Then you waited, I think, several more days to now we're here. And we're still.
How does the season end on June 5th?
January 5th.
January 5th.
Sorry,
okay, gotcha.
January 5th.
I was a little confused.
January
there.
6th, that's Black Monday. A bunch of head coaches got fired, and then that Tuesday, more head coaches got fired. And you were sitting there on your playing with your thumbs, saying, are we gonna hire Jerry? Are we gonna hire Mike McCarthy again? Are we gonna extend him? Well, maybe we will, maybe we won't. We'll give him a deal that he'll probably refuse. Then we'll say we tried. Then he'll get fired, and then we're gonna be stuck here because we don't know what the hell we're doing. Again, Jerry Jones thinks he's meticulous. Oh, I'm playing the field. Oh, I'm trying to get credibility for these head coaches. Why? I mean, this is what Jerry Jones always does. Call me out if you haven't heard this before. You have a prospect. He's an attractive prospect. Waits way too long. Overpay for the guy. Stuck with him. That's literally what's happening now. What's going to happen is you had Mike McCarthy. Acceptable head coach. Unfortunate situation. You wouldn't do anything in free agency this past offseason. Dak Prescott got overpaid. Thanks to you, by the way. Still won't give up his general manager position. I think you should, because you just made Dak Prescott, who's a B quarterback, you're paying him $60 million a year, which is ridiculous. So that's an overpay on Dak Prescott. You overpaid on CD Lamb. By overpay, I don't mean they're not worth it. I'm saying that you could probably save millions of dollars more per year if you paid them, months, in the past. So Dak Prescott's making $60 million a year. CD Lamb's getting paid over, what? I think he's around $35 million a year, somewhere around there. You're going to have to pay Micah Parsons most likely, and he'll probably become the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. Your offensive line is old and expensive. You have no number 2 option at wide receiver. Your defense is banged up. You're probably going to need to pay a few of those guys to get rid of them. Your running game is nothing.
Oh, I don't know. Rico
had a few good games.
No, he had, near the end of the season, consistently good.
Fair, fine. I won't argue with that, but my guess is they're still going to draft a running back. My guess is
But they should. I think that would be good. 1-2 punch.
And on top of that, now you don't have a head coach anymore. The Cowboys' job would have been attractive 4 years ago. It has now been, I'm going to call it, a bottom-of-the-barrel job. It's a great market, but no one wants to be there because Jerry Jones absolutely screwed it up. Overpaid contracts, aging roster. Jerry Jones believes that this team is his and his only. Now his sons are getting involved in pushing to hire Brian Schottenheimer. You brought in Mike Zimmer. He ended up being a pretty bad DC for you. You're at the 28th best defense in the NFL, 31st scoring defense in the NFL. The Cowboys are bottom feeders now. America's team, you have to strip that title. Yeah. Give it to literally any other team.
They never stripped the title, I don't think.
They don't deserve it anymore.
But they're never going to strip it. I mean, you weren't alive way back when the Cowboys were like unbelievable.
What, the 80s?
They were unbelievable.
80s and 90s?
Tom Landry was their coach, and Roger Staubach was their quarterback. They're legendary. Those are legendary. Drew Pearson. And Danny White, when he played great for them. They had all kinds of stars that played for them, and they were unbeatable. Everyone hated them. They were so good. So people don't forget that. The people like me are still remembering all of that, and they were good when Jerry Jones first bought them with Jimmy Johnson, taking them to Super Bowls, and then
he kicked Jimmy Johnson out after a couple of years.
But then they won the Super Bowl again without him. So. And they had Troy Aikman, they had Michael Irvin, they had Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith, the number 1 running back in history. So there's a lot of positives there for the Cowboys that people still remember and won't forget for a long time. But you're right,
because that's all they got.
If you just look at what they've got right now, they don't got much. And
also Deion Sanders too.
Yeah, they had Deion Sanders. Deion would like to be the coach, but I don't think Jerry Jones will ever let him. My prediction: Kellen Moore is going to be.
So you think that they're going to wait 3 more weeks potentially for Kellen Moore to be their next head coach?
I do. I think that's who he was. He was with them before. He knows what he's getting into. He can probably live with Jerry Jones. He's liked a lot by Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott played well, and when Kellen Moore was the offensive coordinator. So I think that's Kellen Moore is going to be their next head coach.
Do you think that matters where they stand by the end of the year next year if Kellen Moore is their head coach? Because I think they're probably going to be a 5-win team next year. 4 or 5-win team next year.
I'm not so sure.
Well,
their schedule, they'll beat the Giants a couple of times.
You really think they'll beat the Giants both times?
I do.
Interesting.
They played the Commanders well. They might beat them once. They might beat them once. They're going to have an easier schedule because they had such a bad season.
That's not always the case though, because bad teams can get better.
Who do they have?
At Panthers.
Win.
At Bears.
Win.
Versus Giants.
Win.
Versus Eagles.
Loss.
Versus Commanders.
Loss.
Versus Packers.
Loss.
Versus Vikings.
Loss.
Versus Cardinals.
Win.
Versus Chiefs.
Loss.
Versus Chargers.
Loss.
At Denver.
Loss.
At Detroit.
Loss.
At Las Vegas.
Win.
At New York Giants.
Win.
At New York Jets.
Win.
At Eagles.
Loss.
At Commanders.
Loss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games.
If 7. I mean, that's
7 and
that's
10.
not the realm of possibility. But that's just a repeat of this year. And so here's the
Giants might beat them once.
I think the Giants may beat them once. Because I think that the Giants will do something crazy in one of these games. 7 and 10, though. I mean, that's what you just got with Mike McCarthy.
Wasn't that their record this year?
Yeah.
7 and 10. chances are they could do it
21st best
again.
offense and the 31st best scoring defense.
Their defense will be better next year.
You hope so.
I mean, Micah Parsons was hurt for quite a few games.
That's true, as was DeMarcus Lawrence. He was also banged up.
Yeah.
The Cowboys are going to be a bottom feeder. That's what they're going to be. Now, fortunately, they're in the easier conference because the AFC, you'd be very lucky to be a top 8 team in the AFC because there's so much talent. Now the AFC West is probably the best head coaching division just based on history and the amount of championships that is within that division. So they're lucky they're in the NFC because you'd be in a conference with teams like the Giants. Who knows what Chicago's going to look like with Ben Johnson? I think there might be growing pains initially. With Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans, Arizona. Who knows what San Francisco's going to look like next year?
No, who knows who the Cowboys might get in the draft? They may pick up a star.
A defensive player. That's what my guess would be. It's Jerry Jones. He knows what he's doing, apparently. He's not going to relinquish his general manager title.
Of course not.
According to him, no one else does it better than him.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's very, disputable. I believe it's time. The NFC Championship game. Let's start with them because that is the first game that is being previewed on Sunday, 3 p.m. on Fox. This is the game. Jayden Daniels, hopefully going to be the first rookie quarterback in NFL history to lead his team to the Super Bowl, while Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are looking to get back there after their loss in the Super Bowl against Kansas City Chiefs in 2022. Now, the defensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, he said if Jalen Hurts is going to be a mobile quarterback and they're going to design QB runs, just be prepared. We're going to treat him like a running back. Take a listen to what the general manager had to say about Jalen Hurts' design runs and what that could mean if he decides to get into a Commanders defender way.
We've had a number of these guys that we've had to prepare for. And so the one thing is if he's going to run the ball and if the coordinator makes a decision for him to run the ball, we're going to treat him like a running back. And we're going to hit him that way. So that's their decision if they want to get him hit the way that he gets hit. If they don't, they'll keep him in the pocket. So, but that's what we're going to do.
So the big question is, will Jayden Daniels make history and become the first rookie quarterback to start in a Super Bowl, or will Jalen Hurts and the Eagles return to the Super Bowl for the first time since 2022?
My takeaway from this game, the Commanders are the NFL's Cinderella team, going from 4-13 in 2023 to the NFC Championship game in 2024. Who would have thought it? They're the darlings of the NFL. Jayden Daniels is the Rookie of the Year and the darling of the league. A better version and with less mistakes this year, right now, less mistake-prone version of Lamar Jackson. He can do it all. He can run the ball, and I think he will. I think that in this game, you'll see Jayden Daniels running the ball quite a bit because the Commanders lost. What's the guy's name?
Sam Cosmi.
Yeah, Sam Cosmi, and near the end of the Lions game to an ACL. And who's gonna block Jalen Carter? And that's going to be an issue. But I think that they can deal with that because Jayden Daniels can make the plays outside the pocket when the play breaks down. He's almost better when that happens. The Commanders are they're better than the Rams, and the Rams almost beat the Eagles last week. Even with Barkley rushing for 196 yards, the Rams were driving down the field. They were on the 20-yard line. All they had to do was get that touchdown, an extra point, and they would have been the ones playing the Commanders. Jalen Hurts is playing on one wheel with that knee injury that he suffered last week. His passing game is suspect and has been. He will be a statue and not able to run like he normally does. I think that's an issue. Two key factors, can Barkley carry the team? Because he's the guy. Nobody's going to be throwing it to Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown. Can the Commanders contain Jayden Carter without Sam Corsi, who, as I mentioned, tore his ACL in the Lions game? I think the Commanders got other things that are helping them, too. They have Diami Brown. He's added a big play element. He had 11 receptions for 187 yards and a TD in the last two playoff games. The Commanders are 5-3 outright, 6-2 against the spread. as underdogs with 3 straight outright wins. They beat the number 1 seed Lions. The ref crew calls a lot of roughing the passer calls against the Eagles during the year. So I like the Commanders, 28-24.
Whew. There it is. There's your score. 28-24 Commanders. You think Jayden Daniels does make history, and I don't. I'm going to take the Eagles here. My score will be, and I'll bring it up right now. My score is going to be 27-24. I do think the Commanders cover though, because I think Jayden Daniels is that good. I think he's an incredible quarterback. When it comes to the season, and the biggest part about Jayden Daniels' game is passing under pressure. As a rookie, he is shockingly great while under pressure. He's the 3rd highest graded quarterback according to Pro Football Focus while under pressure, and especially his scrambles, because he is one of the best running quarterbacks while under pressure. He's number 3. He's actually tied for number 2 in that. So the fact that he's a rookie, the fact that his completion percentage is what it is, the fact that you could have a 350-pound guy coming right at you and Jayden Daniels will stand in the pocket and make the throws necessary is a shockingly impressive trait for a quarterback of the experience that Jayden Daniels has in the NFL. But this is the Philadelphia Eagles. Take Jayden Daniels out of it. I would probably take 6 or 7 Eagles before the next Commander, because I think that Saquon Barkley is the best player on the football field regardless of the team. Based on his season, based on his efficiency, based on his performance. I think Saquon Barkley will be the best football player on that field this Sunday at 3 p.m. on Fox. And then besides that, we have to realize that I do think the injury to Sam Cosmi will be a massive downward swing for the Commanders' hopes at winning this football game. Because the Rams' offensive line was healthy. And Jalen Carter absolutely destroyed anything, especially in the key moment, that last drive. 1:14 left. They desperately needed something. And there was I forgot who it exactly was, but there was a Rams receiver that was about to break open in the middle of the field, probably for a touchdown. And Jalen Carter made a hell of a play to get Matthew Stafford on the ground and also forced the fumble in the crucial situation while the Rams were driving. I think that this defensive front for the Philadelphia Eagles will torment Jayden Daniels extensively. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. You also have Zach Bond, who's had a hell of a year. And then don't forget, De'Ami Brown. He's been popping up here and there, put up some crazy performances. Obviously, scary Terry McLaurin. He'll be out there. Who knows who he'll look. Zach Ertz has come up in some crucial spots to be great. But you have to realize that Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, both rookies this year, both drafted in the same year by the Philadelphia Eagles. And now I think every NFL team is looking back and saying, how the hell did the Eagles get both of these guys? How did we let both these guys fall to the Eagles? Because they have been one of the best defensive back duos in the NFL. Not only that, you have C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You also have Darius Slay. Reed Blankenship is not a bad safety whatsoever. I think it comes down to, how will the Commanders do against Saquon Barkley? Now, we have to realize that the last time these teams played, which was that crazy upset victory that the Commanders did have, Saquon Barkley had a great first quarter, and then I think carried it 16 more times for 27 yards. I don't think that'll happen in this game, because they won't have to. I think it'll be much more complimentary. The only key, and here's where I'm going to give you potential hope for your pick of the Commanders. The only key for the Commanders' victory is you have to make this a Jalen Hurts game. You cannot let Saquon Barkley be efficient, because in the losses that Jalen Hurts has had in the playoffs, he averages, I think, 275 passing yards. He has 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Those are all in the losses. When you take a look at the wins, he doesn't have a single game above 154 passing yards. It's 154 and below. And in that case, he has 4 touchdowns, no picks.
I think he's an overpaid quarterback. I think he's capable of making big mistakes. I think he hasn't made them this year because they've just been handing the ball off to Saquon Barkley. The key to the game is stopping Saquon Barkley, or slowing him down at least. You don't have to stop him totally, but you got to slow him down. I mean, the Rams didn't slow him down. They gave up 196 yards. They were driving for the winning score at the end of the game in a terrible weather game. So I think the Eagles are a little suspect here. The Commanders on a roll. They're playing with house money. Nobody expected them to be here. They only won 4 games last year. They can be relaxed out there. They're dangerous. They're very dangerous. I think they find a way to win this game. Jalen
Hurts averages 133 passing yards per game in his playoff wins. That's how the Eagles find success in the playoffs. You can't let Jalen Hurts be the main guy on your team to win. You have to give it to your running back. You have to find someone else to be the X factor in this game.
I like Saquon Barkley. I like Saquon Barkley a lot. We said we have his shirt hanging up here.
Yeah, signed jersey.
Signed jersey.
So unfortunately, on the New York Giants. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he has an opportunity to be the X factor. He was the X factor against the Rams. He broke off 2 monster runs. First play of one of the drives, he broke off for a 78-yard run late in the game in a key spot to put the Rams in a precarious situation. Now, the game was way too close for comfort, and the Rams were basically right there to win the game if the defense didn't get some crazy stuff.
Excellent coaching job by Sean McVay.
Really. It was very, very well orchestrated, the offense the Rams was, and the defense, though, Nick Sirianni's defense came up in a big spot, and it was Vic Fangio's defense actually came up in a big spot and was able to stop the Rams. But the fact that it was that close, and the fact that on third down against the Green Bay Packers, the score was a 12-point win. But throughout large parts of that game, you're like, how the hell are the Packers? They're down to their 4th wide receiver. How are they in this game? Well, it's because they couldn't convert on third down at all. Now, in Jayden Daniels' defense, in the Commanders' defense, they're the best 4th down team in the NFL. And on top of that, I'm going to get the number here to be, exact. They're the 6th best red zone team, the number 1 4th down team, and the 6th best third down team in the NFL.
Are you surprised that Cliff Kingsbury isn't getting another looks at head coaching jobs?
I mean, I think the only job that would entice him would be the Bears job because he would be working with Caleb Williams again. Now that that's not an option anymore, I think he's perfectly content chilling with Jayden Daniels, making an NFC championship game, and potentially setting history to be the first rookie quarterback in the Super Bowl. Now, this is where we get into the strengths versus strengths. 6th best third down defense. 6th best third down offense. The Eagles have the 3rd best third down defense. 6th best red zone offense the Commanders have. 5th best red zone defense. The only thing you got is the 4th down. 1st for the Commanders offense, 23rd for the Eagles defense. So we're probably going to see some Dan Campbell-ishness, except now it's Dan Quinn.
That will keep Saquon Barkley off the field.
That's what you're going to have to find something. Now here's where I'm going to say, you know what? Screw your Commanders pick, because here's the big difference. The Lions were able to run the ball at an effective rate against the Commanders. I think they ran for 202 yards against the Commanders. But what was the main problem in that game?
Turnovers.
Exactly. I do not expect Jalen Hurts.
He's never going to throw it.
Correct. It'll minimize his turnover risk if you do that. It's the same thing the Bills did with Josh Allen, because that was his big thing. He was the modern-day Brett Favre. And now all of a sudden, James Cook, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, all coming out here and helping out. Helping out in the run game. Josh Allen's running too as well. Running at a very, very nice rate. The defense coming up in some big spots. And Josh Allen now, they have one of the lowest turnover rates in NFL history. This team did. Also one of the lowest sack rates in NFL history this year. Josh Allen, I think, has 6 interceptions. So if you can minimize turnovers, you're not going to have the opportunities that Jayden Daniels had. Now, I don't know if I have the clip anymore, but my prediction for the Lions-Commanders game was if Jared Goff gets turnover happy and keeps throwing interceptions, Jayden Daniels and this Commanders team need to capitalize on that, which they ultimately did. I don't think the Eagles will give them the opportunity turnover-wise. Now, if somehow the Commanders defense shuts them out, 3 and outs, or stopping them on long, sustained drives, there's your opportunity. You have to capitalize on that. But that's not what the Eagles have done all season. They've been a relatively complimentary team. They're near dead last in passing. But it's because Saquon Barkley has rushed for 2,000 yards, and he's going right now for, I think Terrell Davis has the record for most total rushing yards, regular season and playoffs included. That's what Saquon's looking at. And he has a very decent shot at doing it this year. Mm-hmm. Because, he is their offense.
The Commanders scored 45 points against the Lions.
I would too if I got 4 interceptions. If I got 4 interceptions and a fumble recovery. Who's to say
they can't get some turnovers against the Eagles?
I do.
Possible.
They turn the ball over the 6th best rate in the NFL. They also took the ball over at the 6th best rate in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But I don't see Jayden Daniels also being interception happy either. Fumbles could be the issue. Who knows?
Jayden Daniels hasn't turned the ball over in the playoffs so far.
And what's interesting is that every single playoff team that is currently standing has not turned the ball over in the playoffs.
It's big. That's
one
big.
of these teams is going to crack. One of them. Will it be the Eagles? Will it be the Commanders?
Well, the Eagles have a 6.5 point spread there.
It is.
The betting odds say the Eagles are going to beat them reasonably easily.
Which actually a lot of people have a blowout. A lot of people do.
A blowout?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a blowout.
I should say blowout. They have them covering and 10-point victory and whatnot. I don't see that. I think Jayden Daniels is a special player. We have him in at least the top 10 quarterbacks. If he wins this game, going into 2025, he's number 5. And then you have to debate 6 through 10. Because if he's a rookie in the Super Bowl, that's the first time it's ever happened in NFL history. And they're not doing it in spite of him. They're doing it in large parts because of him. And that's the big thing.
They have a very good coaching staff. I think Dan Quinn has done a fantastic job. He brought in Bobby Wagner for leadership on defense. That's worked out extremely well.
Not only has he done a leadership thing, he's been a very key piece of this defense.
Yeah. He had that key fumble recovery in the first playoff game. And they have Cliff Kingsbury, who's done an excellent job. Has had a little bit of a lull there for a while, but he recovered, and he's done a fantastic job with the offensive play calling and putting Daniels in situations to succeed and trusting him.
Jayden Daniels is in uncharted waters right now.
He's been in uncharted waters all year. He's a rookie.
Right. But
right? He made the playoffs. That's uncharted waters. He made the he made the divisional playoff game. That's uncharted waters. He won both games.
Well, in the history of the NFL, rookies were 7-11 in the wild card round, 7-6 in the divisional round, and 0-6 in the conference championship.
There you go. It's his chance.
He has a time. This is his moment. He's handled pressure before, and that's what makes me scared. Because he's a rookie quarterback. He did win the Heisman, but somehow he's going out there and playing like he's a 5-year veteran who's made the playoffs for 3 out of the 5 years. And he's doing it from a Commanders team that has completely reinvented itself in a single season.
Yeah.
Not making massive changes either. They haven't made, like a drastic rebuild change.
Well, they had new leadership.
Dan Quinn. Right now, he's scrubbing away that 28-3 resume, and now he's saying, I'm doing this with a rookie quarterback. He's really changing his own narrative. And by the way, with the Cowboys defense falling apart, that just adds to his reputation of okay, clearly the Cowboys needed me a lot more than I needed them. Because I'm doing this over here, and look at them right now. They were one of the worst defenses in the NFL last year. This is why I wanted the Patriots to get Jayden Daniels. This is why I hope the Patriots would draft Jayden Daniels. That's why I was hoping when we did our mock drafts that the Commanders would look at Drake and be like, arm talent, great arm talent. He's mobile, and he's bigger than Jayden Daniels, so the injury risk is away. But no, they decided to do the smart thing, trust their gut, trust a guy who had one of the best deep ball percentages and completion rates and grades in college football.
Yeah, but
and look where they brought him.
Jayden Daniels was gone before they could draft him.
Well, yeah, by 1 pick.
Yeah, but still, he was gone.
No, that's why I'm giving credit to the Commanders for not, because originally they wanted Drake May. And then about a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks before the draft, the rumors were okay, they're going to draft Jayden Daniels. That's the smart thing. And now we're seeing it through and through. That's why I wanted the Patriots to draft him over Drake May. So, Commanders have an opportunity. Jayden Daniels has an opportunity to make NFL history in just a couple days. But speaking about NFL history, because there's another game that could set or could lead up to set up NFL history, and that's the Chiefs and the Bills. This is another rematch between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, this time in the AFC Championship game. This will be the 4th time that these teams are playing up against one another. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, and the Chiefs are 3-0 against the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs. While Josh Allen has had success against the Chiefs in the regular season, in the playoffs, he's put up a big goose egg in the win column against this team. The Chiefs are on pace and really setting up for NFL history, like I mentioned, for the first three-peat in the Super Bowl era. So here's my question to you. America wants one thing and one thing only. They want the Bills to win. Now here's my question to you. Will you give America what they want and a Buffalo Bills victory, or will the Chiefs end up going to Super Bowl 59?
My takeaway, Bills and Josh Allen finally break through and beat the Chiefs to reach the Super Bowl in Josh Allen's MVP year. The Bills beat them in the regular season. Allen is on a mission. They will have to go against history, however, to do so. They've lost 7 straight road playoff games. They need to limit Mahomes. They They had 2 interceptions against them in the regular season game. The Chiefs have not committed a turnover in 8 straight games now, including the playoff game they played last week. The Bills connected 9 of 13, 9 of 15 third down against the Chiefs in the regular season game. So that's something that the Chiefs are going to try to get the Bills off the field on third down. If the Bills can continue with the way they played in the regular season, then that bodes well for them. They had 71 plays to 52 for the Chiefs in that regular season game, and they time of possession 34 minutes to 26. So that's key for the Bills. Keep Mahomes off the field, keep moving the ball down the field, keep chewing up the clock. Time of possession and converting those third downs. The Bills had the fewest turnovers in the league this year with 8, and the biggest takeaways at 35. They got to keep that going. The Chiefs have no running game. They got nobody. They got Kareem Hunt. He's washed up. Pacheco was hurt during the year, and he never came back the way people expected. They got some other couple of no-name guys that don't carry the ball much. They're not going to be running the ball. It's just going to be passes. It's going to be Mahomes. If you can slow Mahomes down and you can limit Kelsey, who always has big playoff games, I like the Bills 35-31.
So you're giving America what it wants. I wish I could agree with you, but I know better because they just find a way. They always find a way, whether it be referees, bad calls, great plays late, Mahomes, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo's defense. They always find a way to win. So I am picking the Kansas City Chiefs to win. I think it will be late game heroics, 30-27. That's my score. Chiefs do win. Do I feel good about picking that? No. No, because I think, and then, I don't care what people say. America wants the Bills to win. I think that everybody outside of Kansas City is rooting for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Because this would mean, if the Chiefs do win this game, their 5th Super Bowl appearance in 6 years. Nobody wants that except Kansas City.
I don't want it. I'm a Patriots fan.
Well,
I don't want to see that.
Well, and here's why. And you know what? I'm not only saying this just to be, by the way, that pick was just for me to be right because the Chiefs always find the way. Josh Allen nearly had to become Superman again in the prior game that we saw in the playoffs. He almost tried to do too much. Here's the example I'm talking about. They're driving late in the game. They need to make a play, and this is what Josh Allen does. He runs it and nearly pitches it back to James Cook. That's what he would do a few years ago in order to make a big-time play, and against the Kansas City Chiefs, that's going the opposite way most likely as a fumble. He can't do that in the game if he wants to win.
He's learned. He's not going to do that.
And not only that, the Bills' win over the Chiefs earlier this year was actually relatively impressive because Keon Coleman was out. The right tackle Spencer Brown was out. They were down Dalton Kincaid. They were down Matt Milano. All those players were gone. They're back. They're down Taylor Rapp, who, by the way, did next to nothing anyway in this in the Week 11 game. So I'm not sure how big of a loss Taylor Rapp will turn out to be because he didn't do much in the prior game against the Chiefs anyway. But I'm gonna try to defend the Buffalo Bills here, even though I'm picking the Chiefs because I'm on America's side right now. Josh Allen in Arrowhead has not been the problem. He has not been the issue, and the numbers back it up. He's actually outplayed Mahomes in Arrowhead. He has more total yards, has more total touchdowns, fewer turnovers. He has a higher passer rating. The only thing he doesn't have is a higher completion percentage. He has not been the problem. So, and by the way, those 2 losses, I believe, were the ones in the playoffs. So in the regular season, I believe he's undefeated at Arrowhead. Mm-hmm. If he, and by the way, again, the Chiefs pick for me is because I want to be correct. I want to add to my win-loss record. I'm on America's side here. I want the Bills to win. I just know the Chiefs will win because they always find a way to win.
Yeah, well, those are really good points, and I'll say the thing that worries me the most in picking the Bills is Sean McDermott.
Late game,
okay?
Too. Yeah.
You point out it's not been Josh Allen. He's outplayed Mahomes at Arrowhead, right? It's been Sean McDermott snatching defeat from the jaws of victory a couple of times in the playoffs against the Chiefs. That can't happen again. He's got to make good in-game decisions, and he doesn't have a history of doing that. That's my biggest fear in this game. Other than that, I think the Bills are going to find a way to win.
I think that we saw a little bit of growth, and maybe it's because it's the divisional round and the stakes aren't quite at the highest point yet because the Bills have been to the divisional round. It's very rare that they make it to the championship under the Josh Allen era. I believe this is only the second time he's done that. But I think a bit of growth that we saw in the play calling is late in the game. I believe it was on the drive where Josh Allen did this. Instead of going for it on fourth down, or no, it was when it was 19-21. Instead of going for it on fourth down, they kick a field goal. Instead of going for it, you decide to just put up points. And that's what the Bills are going to need to do. And here's the big question. If it is a 4th and 3 in the first half, on, let's say, the 40-yard line, on the Chiefs' 40-yard line, are the Bills going to go for it? Or are they going to kick a pretty long-distance field goal? Because this game will come down to points. Because, yes, the Chiefs' offense ran for 50 yards. And put up 212 total yards, which, if you look at it throughout the season, was their worst offensive production this season. The only one that was worse was when there were no starters out there, where they put up a grand total of 98 total yards. So if you want to say legitimate games, this was their worst offensive production. And that's with Travis Kelce going off, because Al Shire, the linebacker for the Texans, every time Kelce made a big catch, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, who were they circling on the teleprompter? They were circling Al Shire, because he would just leave him open in the zone coverage. And that's something that Travis Kelce does, and Travis Kelce and Mahomes do beautifully. They find the hole in zone, and then you get massive gains off of it. And also, I'll also put this out. Again, not a conspiracy theorist, and I brought this up the last time. I'm not saying I believe it.
I think it's worth bringing up.
The data is there. The data is there that the Chiefs get fewer penalties, suffer fewer penalty yards, and not only that, the penalties that they do get called on are less severe than their opponent's penalties. Because we take a look at it. They've had 3 defensive pass interference and defensive holdings called on the Chiefs in the past 4 playoff years. They've had 11 called against the opposition. 1 roughing the passer against them, 7 on the opposition. Those are 15-yard penalties. 0 unnecessary roughness, 4 on the opponents.
Yeah.
0 unsportsmanlike conducts, 1 on the opponent. I'm pretty sure that 1 was on Kyle Van Noy when they played against Baltimore last year. I think that was around the first half as well. So it's not only, it could be, right? Because we're like, okay, well, now the Chiefs get more disciplined in the playoffs. The numbers back it up. Yes, the Chiefs might not get called for a lot of penalties, but the amount of yards that they gain from penalties are massive. Their penalty disparity is ridiculous. And we just showed, I'm not saying the NFL's rigged, but the fact that
I think
this is realistic data.
This has been talked
proves
about.
that there's some sort of issue.
This has been talked about recently. I think that it's been exposed a little bit. Mahomes has been exposed for trying to flop and get penalties. So I think maybe they won't be so successful with it in this game. We'll have to wait and see. And
the referee reffing this game backs that up because it's Clete Blakeman. Home teams are 5-11 with Blakeman as the head ref.
Oh, wow.
And since 2016, home teams are 46.5% against the spread. This is a 1.5 point spread for the Chiefs, so it's basically like a pick'em. The Bills are 6-2 straight up and 4-4 against the spread with Blakeman as the ref in the Josh Allen era, and the Chiefs are 5-6 straight up and 4-6-1 with Blakeman since 2018. So the NFL, which, by the way, I think they had 7 potential choices for the lead referee in this game, for the reffing crews. They chose this one. And I do think it's because, as of late, we're hearing so much about the Chiefs and the referees.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a leveling factor there. That won't be
and hold on,
an
let's
issue.
say for all intents and purposes, reffing is not an issue in this game with Blakeman out there. I think that just puts more pressure on the NFL, more pressure on the referees. That's something, once again, not saying it's rigged. The Mahomes product is too valuable for the NFL. And by the way, people say, well, Brady got these calls. Yes, there are a couple questionable calls that Brady got. Like, for instance, AFC Championship game, I think it's Chris Jones, barely smacked him on the head. It got thrown for an roughing the passer, unnecessary, whatever the call was. It was a penalty on the Chiefs defender, 15 yards. That's true. But Tom Brady, I think, got 35 roughing the passer calls in his career. Mahomes has 31. And this is his, 7th year in the NFL? So the data is there. And Mahomes manipulates the rules while it is very cheap. I don't have the clip up here anymore, but the slowing up out of bounds and then you step your toe out and then you get touched and a flag comes out. You become essentially a runner and then you slide late. The Texans players hit their own helmets and in sort of like the ricochet, you also get hit. That's a flag. You had a bogus roughing the passer call. And I agree. And now there's some, some speculation about how the rules could change. I think one of them is just like the defense. Let's bring up I'm not going to play the soundbite again, but exactly what the Washington Commanders defensive coordinator said. And I think this is the way the NFL should be.
We'll be waiting for you, pal.
Well, not only that, I think the rule should be if you step out of the pocket, you're fair game. There's no protection. The pocket is your protection. If you step out and especially break out for a scramble, you're going to be treated like every other player who has the ball in their hands running.
Well, you are, unless you slide.
Which Mahomes manipulates now because we're seeing him slide so late, which is what got Trevor Lawrence knocked out for the entire season, and which got Azeez Al-Shaair suspended for 3 games. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I said this weeks ago, after it was the Broncos game, I believe. Maybe not in the championship game, but maybe in the regular season. If Mahomes keeps doing this and the rules don't get changed, hit him. Hit him. Screw the flag. Because they'll probably win anyway.
Yeah.
All you got to do is make it hurt.
It's going to be a great game.
I completely agree.
I just hope it's not a coaching snafu by McDermott that cost the Bills. I'm really worried about that.
I think no matter if you're rooting for the Chiefs, if you're rooting for the Buffalo Bills, don't let the refs determine the outcome of the game. Because we've seen in so many Chiefs games where there's a late flag and it completely ruins the other 59 minutes of the game. Because it's just on one simple penalty. And it could be a dumb penalty, which means that it shouldn't have been called, but it was. Or maybe there should have been a roughing the passer on the other team, not the Chiefs, but it wasn't called.
Pass interference against the Eagles.
A pass interference call.
Against the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Bengals in this season. Don't let the refs determine the outcome of the game. If the Chiefs win on pure merit, by all means, the Chiefs win. If the Bills win on merit, the Bills win. Don't let Clete Blakeman on the final second play, Mahomes throws the ball. We think it's game over. Jim Nantz goes, and the Bills for the X amount of years are finally wait, hold on, folks. Flag, opposite side of the field. It's a roughing the passer. They're on the 35-yard line. I forget Harrison Butker gets a game-winning field goal. Chiefs move on to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I give the edge on offense to the Bills, the edge on defense to the Chiefs, and the special teams even.
I think that's fair. Although
the kicking game, Bass has been very good lately, and Buckner, he's always been good. So the kickoff returns, I don't think there'll be many. Punt returns, I don't know who. I don't know who the punt returner is for either team.
The Super Bowl hero, McCole Hardman, he won't be in this playoffs.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
He's done for the playoffs, so we won't be able to see that weird speed option like they had in the Super Bowl to beat the.
I mean, the Chiefs wide receiver core is a little sketchy too, except for Kelsey, I think. Right?
Well,
DeAndre Hopkins, he didn't have a catch last week. Neither did Schuster or. What was the one other guy didn't have
Xavier Worthy?
Yeah, Worthy had a couple of catches. He's really their only threat on the wideouts, I think. The Chiefs, the Bills wide receivers they play under the radar. I mean, Shakir is very good. Hollywood Brown, right? He didn't have any catches.
Two targets, no catches. Juju Smith-Schuster, 1 target, no catches. Yeah. DeAndre Hopkins, 1 target, no catches.
And they got no running game.
Like either. I said,
it's Mahomes and Kelsey against the Bills.
Right, and like I said, though, if you take out basically the throw game, Week 18, where nobody started, they put up 98 total yards of offense in that game. Last week was their worst performance offensively in the entire season. 212 total yards. If that happens in the Bills game, the Bills are going to win by 15 points. Because I don't think Mahomes could go in there, go on cruise control from the opening snap, and just say, you know what? We're going to win. Because if it's a repeat of the Texans game, Josh Allen and the Bills will overcome that. They'll overcome that because they have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You could just tell by the sack numbers. It's one of the lowest sack numbers in NFL history that this Bills team's had, or at least in a very, very long time. Josh Allen has become not really a numbers guy, but an efficient quarterback, extending drives. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to hopefully bring up the number here. The time of possession that they have, the time per drive, make sure if my computer will load, it's one of the highest in the NFL. Yeah, it's the number 11. They average the 11th longest time of possession drives in the NFL. They also put up the second most points per drive in the NFL.
They have a nice running game.
Nearly a field goal every time they take the ball.
They have a very nice running game, and they have a under-the-radar passing game with some players that, but they are not big names. They've had some nice games, particularly Shakir.
Josh Allen, and I said this last week, he doesn't need to put on the Superman cape. He just needs to be the best quarterback in the system. Mm-hmm. Don't go back to the pre-Brian Daboll. Don't go back to the Ken Dorsey. Turnovers, red zone interceptions, bad play, Superman cape. Do not, by all the love of God, do not do this and instead flip the ball. Because that wasn't going to reach James Cook. It wasn't. You were getting swallowed up instantly.
No, he didn't do it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Don't actually do it this time. Mm-hmm. Because that would be Chiefs ball.
Maybe Von Miller will have another big game.
I think that's what Bills Nation's hope. I'm picking the Chiefs based on the fact that they always find a way to win. Uh-huh. But don't worry, Bills Mafia. I'm with you. I want the Bills to win. I just don't think they will because the Chiefs always find
I'm sorry you didn't pick them. There it is.
It doesn't feel good to pick the Chiefs. It just doesn't. I think that the Bills have a beautiful opportunity, and I think that the overall question is, if not this year, will they ever?
Well, I think they thought, a lot of people thought their season was somewhat of a building season this year. Correct. They have a lot of new players on defense that will be back, right? And they have a lot of young receivers on offense who've played very credibly, and their running game is good. So I think they have a chance to get back. Josh Allen's still young.
No. Not get back into the AFC Championship game. Will they ever beat the Chiefs in the playoffs?
Oh.
As Josh Allen and Mahomes as their quarterback.
They're going to beat him on Sunday. I picked them already. Yeah.
I would also like to add, the last time the Chiefs had a turnover was against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
That's the last time they had. They had one, I think, on the opening snap.
2 interceptions they had.
That second one was like a sort of just a heave out there, try to get the ball down. I'm pretty sure that was what Taylor Rapp's interception was. I don't think he had the opening one. I think it was Bernard who got that pick. I could be wrong. I'm not looking at it right now. But, yeah. It's the biggest game of Josh Allen's career. This doesn't change Mahomes' legacy in a negative way. It just says he'll probably be here next year. Josh Allen, this is the biggest game of his life. Because this would finally get him over the hump. And I think if you somehow, you went up against the Chiefs when they were undefeated and beat them. You went up against the Lions on a massive winning streak and beat them. Then you go into the playoffs against the Baltimore Ravens, who beat the crap out of you earlier on in the year. You beat them. Now you're going up against the Chiefs again. You have an opportunity to beat them. If you do that, they may get over their Super Bowl scares again. 4 straight Super Bowls, 4 straight losses. If you do that, I think they have a good shot at winning the Super Bowl.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, we'll see. Enjoy the games.
I believe in you, Bills Mafia. I didn't pick you, but I'm with America. America wants the Bills to win.
Yep.
That does wrap up today's show of the Harvey Hour. As always, we thank you for the constant support. As always, clips will be up later on in this week, as long as the podcast will be uploaded later tonight. So if you missed any part of the show, you can either watch back this live stream on YouTube, or you can go to Spotify, look up the Harvey Hour, and get this show anywhere you get your podcast. iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify will be there. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name's Nathan Harvey. That's my name, Stephen Harvey. We have been your host of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Tuesday to recap every single championship game. And who knows, maybe the Cowboys and the Saints will finally get their head coaches. We'll react to all of it. But for now, we will see you Tuesday right here on YouTube, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you then.
Good night, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift